How does it make you feel when someone treats you unfairly? Do you like it when someone holds themselves or their group to a different standard than they do you and everyone else? Do you like it when someone is offended by something you said or did and they demand that you give them an apology? But then when they offend you, they just tell you to grow up and get some thick skin, you freaking snowflake millennial? Or do you like it when someone beats you in a competition and they rub it in your face, but then when you beat them in that competition, they give you excuse after excuse? They might blame the weather or the referees or just anything in order to refuse to give you credit for your victory. Or do you like it when the same exact people who spent 8 years mocking and slandering and making racist jokes about President Obama condemn anyone who fairly criticizes Donald Trump for being the egotistical idiot that he is? Do you think that people who live with these sorts of double standards would make a good friend or be a good family? Are they trustworthy? Are they empathetic? Are they supportive, reliable, fair? No, they're not, or at least not as much as they know that they should be. They are, at the very least, selfish and dishonest. They have double standards, one for them and one for everyone else. A wise man once said, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." If you don't want people to offend you, then don't offend other people. And if you think that people owe you an apology when they offend you, then you owe them an apology when you offend them. If you think that people should show you mercy, forgiveness, respect, hospitality, generosity, and understanding, then you should be showing those same qualities to others. Be the person to others that you wish they would be to you. And not because you should expect something in return, you shouldn't, but instead because the way you want others to treat you is with compassion, understanding, empathy, and love. And if you aren't treating others the way you want to be treated, then you aren't being as compassionate or understanding or empathetic or loving as you know that a person should be. Having double standards is something that we all have to check ourselves for, because it's easy to miss if we are being more critical of others than we are ourselves, or that we are being more forgiving of ourselves than we are of others. For example, if you're driving down the road and someone pulls out in front of you, your first instinct might be to point and call them names and say horrible things about them. But then when you pull out in front of someone, you know that it was an accident. Maybe the sun was in your eyes, or they were in your blind spot, or maybe you just had a rough day and had a lot of stuff on your mind. We know what's going on in our lives and what's going on in our minds. We know the reasons that we come to the conclusions that we do. We know why we feel the way we feel about everything. We know the reasons behind the decisions and the mistakes that we've made. We are obviously rational and emotional and complex people. We just sometimes forget that others are just as complex and rational and emotional as we are, and that they deserve the same forgiveness and compassion that we know that we do. But some people don't seem to ever bother considering that fact, and some people just don't seem to care. Some people seem content living their life with double standards. One standard for them or their family or their group, and another standard for all of the outsiders. And from my experience, some of the worst offenders are Christians. They want their religion and their beliefs to be respected, but they make a habit of disrespecting other beliefs and other religions. They want special privileges for their religion in the schools and the government and the media, but yet they don't want any other religion to have any benefits whatsoever. They say that they want religious freedom, but just for their religion, not the others. And they constantly condemn everyone else for not being a Christian. And yet, more often than not, they don't even practice Christianity themselves. They just wear the label. And also, before someone comments, and I know that they will because they always do, no, not all Christians hold these double standards. Hashtag not all Christians. But most Christians do hold some drastic double standards. The overwhelming majority of Christians do. And they do this despite the fact that Jesus and the New Testament make it very clear that Christians are not to have double standards. The golden rule, which I already mentioned, makes that plenty clear enough. In Luke 6:31, Jesus says, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." But perhaps an even better, more explicit verse is Matthew 7:1-2. In it, Jesus said, "Do not judge so that you will not be judged. For in the way that you judge, you will be judged. And by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you." Jesus makes it clear not only in these two passages, but also in many, many more passages in the New Testament that he does not approve of hypocrisy or double standards. The very heart of almost all of Jesus' teachings is to treat others the way that you want to be treated. Hold yourself to the same measure of standard that you hold everyone else. It's not complicated, it's not convoluted, it's simple, and it's blunt. Today, I'm not going to go through a list of double standards that Christians hold, but instead focus on one double standard that is rampant throughout the Christian community, in church, in conversations, and on social media. And that double standard is slander and mockery. Christians can be a very sensitive group of people. They don't like anyone disrespecting or mocking their religion or their gods or their beliefs, and that's fine. That's completely understandable. Now, there are people out there who mock and slander Christianity and Christian beliefs and practices, but it's much more scarce than Christians make it out to be. Christians tend to misrepresent a lot of things as being targeted attacks on Christianity and Yahweh or Jesus. Just look at people like Greg Locke or Josh Feuerstein or Ken Ham even. When Starbucks made their cups plain red, and when gay marriage was finally legalized, and when public schools won't spread religious dogma in class, men like these three people propagate the idea that Christianity is being mocked, and tens, if not hundreds of millions of Christians believe them. Christians also like to misinterpret criticism as being slander or mockery, when it's not. And I'm personally familiar with this, as I am on the receiving end every time I upload a new video. I do not mock or slander Christianity. I criticize it sometimes. And my criticism is nothing more than debunking logical fallacies, correcting misinformation, and calling out bad behavior when I see it. And sometimes I even promote the teachings of Jesus Christ himself. And yet I am still accused of slandering and mocking Christianity. It doesn't take much for Christians to get offended and feel like their religion and their beliefs are being mocked and slandered and disrespected, blasphemed and ridiculed, and they evidently don't like it. Just recently, Netflix released a Brazilian film called The First Temptation of Christ, which seems to depict Jesus as being gay, although it wasn't that blatant. But the Christians writing articles and Facebook posts don't seem to have actually watched the film. But even so, Christians were furious about it, calling it blasphemous, sacrilegious, offensive. They even started canceling their Netflix subscriptions and signing a petition to have the film removed. So you would think that since Christians don't appreciate their religion or their beliefs or their gods being mocked, slandered, or disrespected, that in return they would not mock, slander, or disrespect other religions, other beliefs, or other gods, right? Kind of like doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. But from 24 years of experience living in the Bible Belt, I can tell you that is not the case. Christians are more often than not bigoted, intolerant, insensitive, and disrespectful to any and all outsiders. And to see what I'm talking about, you don't have to look any further than how Christians treat Muslims. They burn the Quran, they call Muslims goat fuckers and sand niggers. Every time I log into Facebook, I see at least a handful of memes from Christian boomers mocking Islam and Muslims, or fake news articles perpetuating some conspiracy that Islam has infiltrated the government and is about to outlaw Christianity, or something stupid like that. Islam is the new satanic panic for Christians. They exaggerate and slander Islam as a means of fear-mongering, a call to arms for lackluster Christians, and they mock and poke fun at Islamic beliefs in order to feel better about their own Christian beliefs. And Christians treat atheists more or less the same way. They call them Satan worshippers, God haters, fools, and accuse them of being possessed by demons or being angry at the world. They burn books written by atheists and share memes on social media mocking and slandering atheists with misinformation and outright lies. They also spread conspiracies about atheists trying to hide the truth about God and build the New World Order order to bring about the end times. Christians don't hesitate to mock Muslims or slander atheists or blaspheme the gods of Hinduism or any other religion. They will disrespect any belief, any religion, and any god that isn't their own. I literally see this behavior from Christians every time I log into social media, and I grew up hearing it in church and at any other event where Christians were socializing, and I still hear it and sometimes have it directed towards me when I interact with Christians in person. Now, as far as slander goes, you should never slander anyone or anything. If someone or something is wrong, you should criticize it fairly and honestly. You should never have to misrepresent or exaggerate something in order to criticize it. If you have to do that, then that shows that you probably don't actually have any valid criticisms, or else you wouldn't have to exaggerate or misrepresent it in the first place. When you slander someone or something, it's dishonest and it's hurtful, and it costs you your integrity. If you want to criticize atheists or Democrats or liberals, then do it honestly and fairly. Don't share photos like this. That is slander. Now, if you want to make fun of atheists or Muslims or Democrats or whoever, I think that's fair. As long as it's comedy and strictly comedy, not hate or harassment, I think everything is open to be made fun of. But that includes you too, and your religion and your beliefs and your gods. I don't think that there's anything wrong with poking fun at people's religions or beliefs or gods, even if it offends them. As long as it's in good fun, I think that's fine. But personally, I still try to stay away from mocking people's religions or beliefs just to offend them and get a laugh out of myself. I think it is a bit childish, even if it isn't necessarily wrong. And I do think that there comes a point where if all you can ever do is make fun of something, it sort of shows that you don't really have anything valid to say about it. But still, if you want to mock or make fun of someone's religion or belief or some organization, I think that's totally fair, and that's fine. But if you're going to do it, you better be able to take it when someone throws it back at you. Otherwise, you have an explicit double standard. If you don't want to be offended, don't try to offend others. If you don't want your religion mocked, if you don't want your gods blasphemed, if you don't want your beliefs made fun of, then don't mock other religions, don't blaspheme other gods, and don't make fun of other people's beliefs. And if you're a Christian, this is one of Jesus' teachings. It's something that you're supposed to live by. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Notice that he didn't say do unto others that believe what you believe, or do unto others that have the same skin color as you, or do unto others who have the same junk between their legs as you, or do unto others who have the same sexual orientation as you. He said do unto others. Others being anyone that's not you. Treat them how you want to be treated. Treat other people how you want to be treated. If you don't want to be offended, don't offend others. If you don't want your God blasphemed, don't blaspheme someone else's God. If you don't want your religion mocked, don't mock someone else's religion. And if you don't want your beliefs slandered, don't slander someone else's beliefs. And if you can't do that, if you can't live according to the golden rule, then you aren't living according to the teachings of Jesus. And at that point, are you really even a Christian? And why even get offended when someone mocks Christianity if you aren't even living according to its teachings? If you get offended when someone mocks or slanders your beliefs, that's fine. That's understandable. But if you do, just make sure that you're setting an example of how others should act, instead of acting like others and perpetuating the problem.